Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Franco here with Frank Analysis, and I'm here to read to you guys chapter 3 of the Tao of Systems Thinking. And like I said in my review, and like how I said in chapter 2, and when I read chapter 1 when I did the review, this book can help you become a better thinker and to understand the world around you better, to understand how all these different things in this world are all connected with each other. So let's go ahead and read chapter 3. So this is called The Great Design. Here we have passage 19. A true way we can find a superior principle is to renounce learned behavior, benevolence, and justice. See what's simple and embrace the primordial. 3.19 Education and Conditioning. Learning to think goes beyond what most of us have been trained or conditioned for. Most educational systems prepare us to work in social systems we don't control. Before we can discover underlying truths for ourselves, we must shed the conditioned paradigms and mindsets we have been molded to follow. This requires us to question things first, rather than to follow without questioning. So we must renounce even what is apparently good or benevolent before we determine what to value for ourselves. Simplicity is the root of more complex systems. It is easier to work with complicated issues by starting out with basic components and principles. From these, we see how more elaborate structures emanate. Once we grasp fundamental principles, we will understand better how more complex things work and be able to troubleshoot issues when things don't function as we expect. This often requires us to forget what we have learned and rethink things for ourselves to go beyond how and understand why. So this portion here is criticizing our education system right now. Our education system is not controlled by us as individuals. Not everything that's taught to us in the school system is going to be provable. And so it's up for us as individuals to question the things that are taught to us in school, or even going beyond that. Things that are taught to us on videos that we watch, or things that are taught to us by people that we interact with in real life. We have to discover these things for ourselves too. We have to take in some of that information that they tell us, but also question some of it and not get attached to it and believe that that is the irrefutable facts, right? Otherwise, we're just taking in everything as if it were a religion and taking and believing them like dogmas. We can't be dogmatic about things, and we have to actually question them and just be, confident about your experiences. And what's the other word that I'm looking for? I can't think of the word right now, but it's important to always be questioning things and to not just take in everything and accept it to be 100% true. Here we go with passage 20. What distinctions can we make between good or bad? Since when do we distinguish what we do because we fear what others think? Learn to think for yourself. So this kind of ties in with what we discussed with passage 19. In passage 19, I just want to go back a little bit here and say, as we go on with our lives, we discover and see more evidence about things, and some of those experiences can contradict some of the things that were taught to us earlier in life. And the less attached we are to some of those things that are taught to us by school systems or by videos we watch, is to not be so attached to them and to be open to new information. Learn to think for yourself. 3.20 Learning how to think. People often make simplistic judgments about what is good or bad without understanding because of social conditioning. They react or respond from fear of what others will think, without thinking for themselves. This wastes cognitive and other human abilities. To have the ability to think without thinking, to have reason without the use of reasoning, to be passive when we have the ability to act, to add value to work which is taken away by others, to live under repression without resisting. All of this happens when we consent and accept how we live without questioning this ourselves. What if we're the ones who are responsible for our own mental enslavement? Do you think actively or passively? Learn to think for yourself. Be responsible for your own existence and learn to think critically. Not just to complain, you must learn how to transform your environment. First by focusing mentally within, and then the external, physical world will begin changing as well. So this is pretty much saying, don't be a sheep. Don't just be a reactionary based on how everybody else is reacting. All right, don't just go along with the crowd. Think for yourself. Here we go with passage 21. The universe seems confusing and imprecise, but within it are forms and structures which determine all that is real. You must also know this nature is within you. 3.21 Simplicity is the basis for complexity. The external manifestations of this world may seem confusing and imprecise because we observe phenomena which contain mixed energy and entropy of multiple intersecting systems with different dynamic relations all at once. No wonder this seems confusing. And yet on a larger scale, we can see the natural harmony of the universe, which is also reflected through living systems on our planet. Why then the apparent confusion? External manifestations come from simpler internal forms and structures. This is apparent even within organic systems of a single living human being. And even more amazing is what we know about the genesis of the human embryo, how it is conceived, develops, and grows. So from simple beginnings, we can see extensive development also in ourselves of much more complex systems. Thus we know that the nature which generates complexity is within us, but it has roots which come from simpler internal structures. Complexity is inherently unstable. Complex systems tend to break down more quickly than simple ones. This explains why so many of the complex systems we create have collapsed, and that most human endeavors do not last. Here's passage 22. Empty yourself, so you will be filled. If you have little, you will gain much. But if you have much, you will only become confused. Unity is a model that can be a source of completion for you. 3.22 Learning and thinking machines. Learning begins with a process of emptying yourself. Depending on what you know doesn't prepare you to learn anything new. If we are aware we know little, we are prepared to learn more. But if we have learned much already, we may be confused by new discoveries. Sometimes we must forget and replace what we have learned, because what's new is contradictory and what we know becomes obsolete. This is also a defect of technological development, which makes learning become obsolete faster than when technologies are used for longer time spans. Natural developments tend to be more stable and enduring. Dependence on technological development does not present us with lasting knowledge or solutions. In fact, today's solutions, quote unquote, often become tomorrow's problems. Unity in nature and the universe is a better model that can be an important source of personal satisfaction and completion. What we learn from nature won't be surpassed or become obsolete. So what we know about our environment can lead to important understandings for our own development. Think of the first computers. These were technological marvels, to be sure, but they filled entire buildings, cost millions of dollars, and were only affordable for governments and military use. Then mainframe and mini computers were developed for business and corporations, after which followed personal computers, the early desktop computers with CRT television type displays. All of these computers required costly materials and used more energy. Besides producing more waste, recently smaller laptops, notebooks, and tablets have been developed, often with the same or greater capabilities. Smaller in size, but more energy efficient and less expensive. As this process continues, people learn to do more with less if they imitate nature. The mental capabilities of a single human being are still vastly superior in many ways to even the best computers or thinking machines out there. Are we effectively using the capabilities of our own minds? Learn to use your mind first, and then use the computer as a tool to extend your capabilities. Although computers can be programmed functionally to operate at great speeds, what do they actually understand? Machines are not yet conscious like humans, nor should humans try to imitate machines. So that right there is telling us to not be so dependent on computers or technologies for the way that we think. And this, we should especially consider this as we're moving into this into the future, which it looks like it's going to use more artificial intelligence. We're starting to see that more now. Like, I've been seeing some tweets and some TikToks of people showing what art that artificial intelligence can do. Marvel Studios recently used AI to make an intro, and there was a lot of backlash with that. A lot of people were criticizing Marvel Studios and Disney for doing that, using an artificial intelligence for an intro in one of their shows, rather than paying artists, to make that intro. But computers are not human minds. There are things that the human mind can do, a lot of things that the human mind can do that computers can't do. So be more comfortable with yourself and the way that you can think, rather than being dependent and being dependent on what computers tell you, or trying to make yourself think like a computer. Or you're better than a computer. You are a human, and you can do things with your mind that computers can't do. You can reach a level of consciousness and free will that computers can't do. Here we go with passage 23. Simple and tranquil words speak for themselves. Human efforts often precipitate violent effects without purpose. One who courts virtue finds virtue. One who courts loss finds loss. 3.23. Knowledge cannot be forced. The deepest knowledge speaks for itself. People often try to force things which naturally occur anyway. They do this to obtain what they think are additional benefits. This shows ignorance about natural abundant systems. Our world has resources which are potentially available for everyone. This has been true for thousands, tens of thousands, and hundreds of thousands of years, because those resources are renewable. And yet we have strived, competed, and fought violently with one another to extract and dominate resources which were freely available, so a few could derive additional power by controlling them. We shall see that those who strive to obtain more through violence court loss. And those who discover what is already available gain both mentally and physically, because they understand that using force has only been employed out of selfishness or ignorance, even in a world of diminishing resources. There would be enough for all who learn how to manage and share them. Passage 24. We cannot tiptoe through life, but our own achievements won't last. There are other determinants we must recognize. which are stronger and will inevitably change whatever we do. 3.24 Determinants. Life would be empty without our own accomplishments, but these achievements, even for great endeavors, do not last. Other temporal forces soon erase what we've done. There are other forces of far greater scale and importance than the specific or individualized efforts of what we do, even when these seem relevant or important to us. Greater determinants will change what we do, sometimes because we've been socially conditioned, or because other causes are fundamental to everything that exists, which will inevitably change us instead. The underlying nature of our environment is greater than the material sources we try to exploit or control. Passage 26. There is a great design that is undefined but complete within itself. Born before the heavens and earth, its greatness extends far beyond our perceptions, but returns to be within them. Man is still bound by the laws of planet Earth, but the great design has no boundaries. 3.25 Beyond perception. The immensity of the universe extends far beyond our mental and physical perceptions, and yet what is beyond us is still accessible, because what is undefined is part of the same continuum, whether we recognize it or not. Earth is part of that design, as we belong to it. So that immensity of space extends for light years that we can see in the stars, and yet it's still within us. How could scientists like Albert Einstein probe the unfathomable depths of atomic physics to unleash the power of nuclear energy? And how could the instruments of astronomers extend our vision across billions of light years of interstellar space? While we're bound by the laws of our planet, our minds aren't physically limited in the same ways. Thus, we can sense the Tao of the great design in all systems, even beyond our own mental and physical perceptions. We are innately and intuitively conscious of that design in the universe. Now we go to passage 26. One who travels should be well equipped. Those who act lightly may be separated from their own roots. Becoming agitated may cause people to lose control. 3.26 Making sense of subconscious experience. The cognitive abilities of our brains can be overwhelmed by our senses, emotions, and useless information. So it's best to be selective about what we learn and conserve what is important. Those who are caught up by superficial aspects will be constantly agitated. But wiser men, who know what is profound and well-rooted, are tranquil and serene. Focus on what is well-based and you will be assured of a solid foundation. This does not depend upon anything you can memorize or carry. It is within you and related to your universal subconsciousness and the internet. Since nothing important can be taken away, it will never be lost. Passage 27. A critical path follows a precise trajectory. When everything works as planned, using an effective guidance system. For this reason, those who are better prepared become teachers of those who are less so. This essential process leads the way. 3.27 The guiding principle of simplicity. The essential process that leads the way is the guiding light of primordial simplicity, called the Tao. This inner principle shows us that moving in the right direction leaves minimal effects in its wake and cannot be easily criticized. It shows us that good calculations don't always need a calculator or computer, that what's most securely bound is held without tying, and that no one is left out of a truly successful social system. We need to focus on doing what truly makes us happy. This is quite distinct from pursuing materialistic goals to obtain what we think would make us happy, but actually don't. So we need to discover how to move in the right direction, because it's no use to move in the wrong direction, no matter how intelligent it seems. This implies that there is a better direction in which we can move for ourselves as individuals and as a species. So that's it for chapter 3. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys for the next one. Stay informed.